Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with my list of recommended campaigns for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires for new and returning players. The reason I'm making this list is that since Creative Assembly has made Immortal Empires far more widely available than before, there are going to be a bunch of new and returning players to the game. People who haven't played the game for months, or people who never picked up the game in the first place. So this is my list if you're looking to either return or get into Immortal Empires. And starting at number 5, we have Queek, Headtaker of the Skaven. We all love Ikiclaw, we all love Snitch, we all love Fraud, but I think Queek Headtaker is the best Skaven campaign to start with if you're looking to play the Skaven in Warhammer 3. The reason behind this is he's not a specialized campaign as all the others are, including Tretch. You might think Tretch is a generic lord, but really Tretch is very much focused on ambushing, on declaring wars, on backstabbing, whereas with Queek, you have a lot of different ways of playing his campaign, and you can make any kind of playstyle work with him. Be it range playstyle, monster playstyle, infantry playstyle. In fact, his infantry playstyle is what kind of sets him apart, so he's more direct than the others. That's because if we look at his faction effects, he gets an upkeep benefit for Storm Vermin and Clan Rats, he gets more Chieftains than everyone else, and he gets extra usage for Menace Below. That is very substantial. On top of that, when we look at Queek's own skill line, he gets further benefits for Skaven Slaves, Clan Rats, and quite crucially, for Storm Vermin, because he can recruit Storm Vermin faster than all the other Skaven Legendary Lords. Of course, this is also available if you're playing Tretch or any other Skaven and Confederate him, but it is something that Queek inherently starts with. And so as a result of that, he can make an infantry army work the best out of all the Skaven Legendary Lords. On top of that, Queek himself is quite a monster in battle, and a monster on the campaign map. How much of a monster? Well, let's just say that before the release of Tides of Torment, I was playing a campaign as Cetra after the Tomb King rework, and I kind of had the whole pack of vassals that were trying to defeat Queek, and it took 10 plus armies, including my own, to defeat this guy. The reason he's so difficult to defeat is his natural expansion path takes him towards Carrick 8 Peaks. He starts with a penalty, a small one, of control, which is not as big of a deal because you can pretty much trigger rebellions on command when you're taking over a province as this game, so extra experience and extra money. But the way the campaign is played, because of the Skaven settlement takeover mechanic, what you can do is you can go to a settlement, you'll always take it at tier 1 unless you're spending food on it. And this is where Queek excels at, really, genuinely excels at. He is quite scary when you think about what he can do in his campaign. And once you consider the heroes that he can get, as well as all the other benefits that the Skaven have, you end up in a situation with a Legendary Lord that can have a lot of heroes, a lot of varied armies, and a significant amount of power. Furthermore, he has a dynamic campaign situation because of his starting position where he can go west, he can go south, he can go north, he can go east. I would recommend going north and teaching that asshole Tretch, who's the boss of the Skaven over here in the Badlands. But regardless, you do have those choices available to you, so I think this is a really great starting point for the Skaven in general. At number 4, we have Tyrion of the High Elves. Tyrion has always been a very solid campaign and one of the best recommended campaigns in the game for anyone that's new or a returning player. The reason behind this is Tyrion really amplifies the core strengths of the High Elves. You want to go Spearmen and Archers, he does that very well. But on top of that, he does have a lot more flexibility ever since the release of the Tides of Torment DLC and patch 7.0. The reason behind that is due to the rework, Tyrion is now in a much better position to end up dominating Ulthuan. To be clear, this is going to be a more limited campaign in terms of the choices you have because you are focused on dealing with Malekith for your victory conditions, but between the inherent strengths of the High Elves, combined with cultural advancements and all the kind of benefits that you get from cultural advancements, including spy networks, you end up in a substantially better position than you were before playing the High Elves. Then, when you consider the fact that you now have guaranteed confederations with the High Elves through the patronage system, that means you no longer have to worry about herding the cats of Ulthuan. Because when you're playing a Tyrion campaign, you get more influence, especially for battles fought in Ulthuan. Like those 2 battles right there gave me 60. 60 is a significant amount of influence. You can use it for heroes, you can use it for lords, or you can use it for patronage seats. So what you can do is you can guarantee a confederation with Alariel much faster than anyone else. And Alariel gives you handmaids. So that means you no longer have to worry about how you manage to get a confederation with her without having to wait dozens and dozens of turns or trying to abuse the AI for it. It's guaranteed. That's why these systems work so very well. And then on top of that, when you add in to the Champion of Ulthuan mechanic that gives you all kinds of benefits similar to Jan Bo or Karl Franz, you end up with a very powerful campaign and a bunch of dynamic systems. The path of the campaign may be linear, but how you get to the destination of Nagrand, that does have a lot of twists and turns available in your campaign. To be sure, Tyrion doesn't have as many heroes as some other High Elven Legendary Lords. He's not the best campaign. I think Alifanar is much better. Hell, even Alariel is a better campaign. But if you're a returning player, this is the one I would recommend. I mean, seriously, Attain as a province in itself is very substantial. And it should be pointed out that if you're not playing Tyrion, he's kind of the harder one to confederate. Well, Aislinn as well. But let me just say it like this. Whether or not you confederate Aislinn quickly is not as relevant as to whether or not you can confederate Tyrion quickly, just because how powerful he is, how powerful Attain is, the kind of benefits you get from that. Aislinn is valuable, but not as valuable as Tyrion. If you're not playing Tyrion, you need to get both the Illyrian seat and the Lothern seats. So that means you're going for 2 seats for 1. Whereas if you're playing Tyrion, you can get many more seats far more easily. Like you'll get Alariel pretty quickly, you can guarantee Ivres, you can get Terranok, you can get Safri. You can handle all of these different seats in a campaign far more easily than others. And number 3 is Thorgrim Grudgebearer, the High King of the Dwarves. Certainly, Gorombrindal and Malachi are far stronger Legendary Lords, but I think Thorgrim is a really good starting point for the Dwarves. First off, like Queek, he has a dynamic starting position where you can approach different threats from multiple angles. So you can deal with Gorbad, you can deal with Skarsnik, you can march into the Darklands to secure an alliance with Imric, and also beat up Drazif and Tretch, of course, who doesn't like beating up Tretch. Or you can go north and deal with Azag. You might even go all the way into the Empire to secure their alliance by defeating Vlad. So all those kind of choices do exist in this campaign. On top of that, Thorgrim himself is pretty solid in combat, and the benefit he has is with these 4 quest battles and the items he acquires from them, as well as a significant amount of cash, that gives him an infusion of resources that he can use in his campaign to unlock higher tier settlements, unlock a variety of units, so you don't need to focus so much on economic buildings. Or you can focus on economic buildings, but focus more on oath gold as opposed to just pure money and construction cost reductions. So those are some of the benefits of Thorgrim. Then on top of that, you add in the dwarf dynamics where through Age of Reckoning and the Legendary Grudges, you end up having both short-term and long-term objectives to deal with in a campaign. Every single dwarf Legendary Lord has some Legendary Grudge they aim for. For Thorgrim, it is unlocking the Underway, which further increases his flexibility in the campaign. On top of that, his special skill line gives him 1 hero capacity for each of the main Dwarven heroes, except Demon Slayers, which are a Thrones of Decay hero. But you get Engineers, you get Thanes, you get Runesmiths through his special skill line. And you also get a more powerful Age of Reckoning Grudge Settler army provided you unlock that special skill line and complete a full Age of Reckoning. And Karazak itself is also a really good settlement. You can play Thorgrim in many ways, even if you don't own any DLC. The baseline dwarf roster of warriors, longbeards, hammers, thunderers, iron drakes is a very good one and versatile one. Then you consider the flying units with gyrocopters, gyrobombers, and gyrocopters with brimstone guns, and then of course the dwarven artillery. So you end up having a great deal of variety in terms of your unit roster as well. Would recommend the DLC, just so you have more choices, in particular with regards to Lord options for Rune Lords and Demon Slayers, but it is not necessary to buy any of the DLCs in order to unlock the full Thorgrim experience, or a good Thorgrim experience. I'm not quite sure exactly how you unlock it. I think you do need to own Warhammer 1 and then buy one of those DLCs if you want more choices. You can't just buy one of those DLCs. But it is a really good campaign as a starting point for the dwarves, and a good starting point in general. At number 2, we have Lokhir Felheart of the Dark Elves. Some would talk about Morathi or Malekith, but I think Morathi and Malekith are specialized on fighting the High Elves in their campaigns, whereas Lokhir, he has a lot more choice, far more so than one might think, because when you play Lokhir's campaign, you might think, oh, I have to fight Cathay, I have to fight Gelt. That is the dynamic you have in this campaign. But that's not really true, because due to the way Dark Elven diplomacy works, specifically that they only have -40 aversion with the vast majority of factions, I think it's 60 with dwarves, they actually end up having a lot more choices and flexibility in terms of how they approach their campaign from a diplomatic standpoint. The only things you need to do in Lokhir's campaign are basically defeat Aeslan. It's not even a question of having to defeat the High Elves. All you need to do is defeat the High Elf Sea Patrol, and of course take Ulthuan. But that is a longer term objective as opposed to a short term objective. And that means you end up having a lot more flexibility on your campaign. On top of that, Dark Elves are really great because they work very well within the current context of the game. Even if you don't own any of the DLCs, but if you do own the DLCs, you'll be better off for it. But even without the DLCs, you have a good variety of units and heroes available. And Lokhir elevates that through the fact that he can get more Black Arcs than anyone else. Black Arcs have been substantially buffed with the release of the Tides of Torment DLC, at least for Lokhir, because he now has a diktat that increases their growth in a nearby sea region if you're using 300 slaves. And this does have a 5-turn duration. You can't use other diktats, but it is a very powerful one. You have a lot of money, you have a powerful army, you have mobility on the campaign map, and crucially, you can also steal Aeslan sea lanes. And yes, I am talking about stealing. You just need to take control of the province he starts in, the Eastern Colonies. That further adds to the dynamic elements of this campaign. And finally, you can also teleport Lokhir by using 100% of his movement range to any Black Arc on the map. And that is an astounding level of mobility in the campaign, because it means with Lokhir you can travel very deep inland and then just teleport on the other side of the map if you feel like it. That is a great level of mobility and certainly makes the campaign substantially better. So whether or not you're dealing with Cathay or Ulthuan or other parts of the campaign map, because your climate situation is fairly good, minus the mountain situation, but for the most part, Dark Elven climates are very good. Would be nice to have a mountain, but even without that, it is still a very solid situation. Kind of weird that he has ocean as uninhabitable, considering, you know, what Lokhir is, but all the same, ocean really only affects the Galleon's graveyard for the most part, so it's not really that important. Great campaign, great legendary lord. May seem a bit specialized, but he really is the quintessential Dark Elf campaign to play. He is the best campaign to play, and he is also the one that gives you the most choice and variety available, as well as being a great learning experience for anyone that's new or returning to the game. So, recommend Lokhir. Top tier campaign in the game. Very, very good, very fun, very solid legendary lord. Finally, at number 1 is Emperor Karl Franz. Now, this campaign on a surface level may seem overwhelming, but it should be pointed out, while it may be tricky and force you to go in all kinds of different ways in order to succeed in this campaign, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sure, dealing with Vlad and Kemler can be a bit painful, but one of the things to remember about Karl is that Altdorf itself is a fortress. It's very difficult for anyone to take it down on any difficulty. You're going to be playing on Legendary, and very rarely will anyone even attack Altdorf in the first place. And that's assuming every other AI faction around you, including Elspeth, fails significantly, and usually at least some of them will win. Elspeth losing to Vlad can happen, but is exceptionally rare, considering she's designed to hard counter Vlad. So you are in a far safer campaign position than it might seem at the first glance, but you're also in a situation where you are forced, in order to secure the Rankland province properly, to deal with all kinds of things. Helmgart does guard against Grom, Wood Elves, Skaven, etc. But again, you are far safer than it might appear. But it does force you to go in different directions and deal with a wider front than you would in other campaigns. Then on top of that, you add to the fact that Karl Franz does have the Electric Count mechanic, and he also gets a lot more benefits with regards to Electric Count State Trooper. So he inherently has more variety, especially in a longer campaign, than other Legendary Lords. He also has an amazing level of growth in his campaign, and he can also guarantee confederation with all other Legendary Lords of the Empire. It starts out only with the Electric Counts, but once you unlock Emperor of the Empire Research, which only costs prestige, then suddenly you get the ability of confederating all other Imperial campaigns. Sure, getting Vision with Marcus Wolfhard and Volkmark may be tricky, but Gelt, you can just ally Xiao Ming. One of his caravans will inevitably show up in the Empire, and you have ways of manipulating diplomacy in order to secure those kind of diplomatic dealings. So it's a campaign that seems tricky at first, but it's a lot better and safer than one might think, but it forces you to become a better player. It gives you a wide toolkit of heroes and units and lords from the very beginning, and different campaign situations. Even if you don't own any of the DLCs for the Empire, you're still going to be in a pretty great situation with the baseline Empire roster. You have magic, you have captains, you have warrior priests, witch hunters. You would be missing certain things like arch-electors and engineers, master engineers, but the baseline Empire roster is really good. Recommendation is to get Thrones of Decay if you're looking to play an Empire campaign, but really, even if you get none of the DLCs, you're still going to be in a great position. So this is the quintessential beginner and returning player experience for Warhammer 3. And it's kind of amusing for me personally as a content creator, because the reason I started covering Immortal Empires was because I was laughing at how bad this campaign was as a recommended campaign before the release of Thrones of Decay. But since then, due to the Empire rework, and as well as many different changes that Creative Assembly has implemented, this has gone from one of the worst campaigns to one of the best campaigns in the game flat out, and certainly one of the best campaigns, the best campaign actually, for new and returning players. It teaches you the right lessons, it forces you to think, it forces you to strategize. It's not just taking an army and decimating everything in your path down a linear path. That is why this campaign is amazing. Quasine here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. And an honorable mention before I wrap this up would have to go to Grimgor Ironhide. Yes, Grimgor is an honorable mention. I don't think he quite makes the list. But if you just want a campaign where you smash things up in a very clear and decisive way, Grimgor is a great choice. And you only need to have Warhammer 1 in order to play that campaign. Stay tuned for more, boys and girls.